Howdys and salutations, y'all! Ooh, I've got the music way high. Give me just a half a second. Is that a little better? Hopefully that's a little better. Welcome back! We are getting back into it with these Miquella illustrations. Now, a little bit of a recap, because I know this looks different from where we left off yesterday. After the stream ended, I figured, you know, we've spent so much time in poses, and I want to be able to just, like, refine and silence and not commentate so much just for a minute. Because I really needed to put my full thoughts into getting the posing right, given how much of a trouble we've had with it on this particular project. So yeah, what I did after stream was I did a little bit more, just working around, trying different poses, trying to work it out so that some of the poses we wanted to do might work without obscuring the face, things like that. But with still showing and being reasonably ominous. And I think I've found something exciting. For the record, if you want to see that, don't worry, you don't have to miss out. I posted the full VOD on YouTube. Didn't get as copyright struck as I expected, because I actually just listened to my own music. Well, not music I made, but my own Spotify playlists, as opposed to what we usually do with the stream safe stuff. Not that the stream safe stuff is bad, I quite enjoy it, but there's something to be said about actually being like in the zone with your music. And I've just now remembered I have a dedicated drawing music playlist that I didn't use. That was late in the evening. I think my more chill playlist was probably a reasonable choice. In any case, if you want to see that whole thing, that is already live and posted on YouTube. I try to get those things uploaded fast. From stream to YouTube post, we usually keep around a 2-hour turnaround, with thumbnails and everything. Usually a lot less, sometimes more, but generally speaking, you know, a reasonable estimate. So yeah, that is all good to go. The previous video, or the yesterday's stream, was already in the process of uploading when I was continuing the art. So yeah, a little more to see there. Mainly, y'all saw me messing around with poses. We were at, let's see, we ended up on E. You can see I spent a lot of time on this, because we were going through different things. We'd ended up with some more extreme poses. This one's fun. I don't think it works for the intimidating overview that we wanted, but if we wanted just like a heads-on shot, I think this would actually be a really cool one. I like it. And it's from a reference, of course. All the references are on the, I almost said Spotify, Pinterest, if you want to check those out. Sifstreams.com's got everything you need there. In the meantime, I'll stop shilling all of my own things, and instead, let's look at these actual poses. So here's what we got. You know, trying to get some overhead views, just some perspective lines. And I like how dynamic this pose is. I like how it really frames the shotel. However, when you add the hair, that shotel is going to be less visible. And unfortunately, the hand obscuring everything makes for a fairly bad silhouette. The arm going right behind the head like that is also not great. Still, I'd love to do something similar to this, but rotated, if we could figure it out. And I think I attempted something sort of like that. Yeah. The pose is D. This was when we started getting the post-stream stuff, and I was no longer warmed up. They're a lot looser, but they're also worse. I don't know why I never went back to the... Pose C actually had, like this is a really dynamic pose if I just had a slightly different angle. Surprised I didn't go back to that. Like, even, yeah, that's what I was trying to say with this. That said, you know, seeing it like that, it doesn't work quite as well. Perhaps with proper proportions and the arm not being so wonky, but... maybe we consider it. We'll poke our head around pose C a little bit, too. Oh, yeah. And then we get to pose E. We go for the same... Actually, I think these are the same perspective line. Nope. I guess this is... I don't know which ones these match. I tried to match... pose B's perspective lines. Okay, I know I was matching one of the past ones. And then I went for something a little more exciting. I kind of like, as much as I like having the shotel framed in the light, or framed above, which I'm still tempted by, I also really like the concept of having it right down as a sort of close focal point, with Miquella being a little more ominous in the background. I think that kind of works for their vibe of working in the shadows, and the light, but the light at the outskirts of the world rather than the center. Miquella really was kind of all over the place. And people are getting increasingly nervous that Miquella is going to be something of a, what's his name from Berserk character? Mr. Betray Your Friends. Starts with a G. I don't remember it. I haven't actually watched or read Berserk. I just know of it through Dark Souls references. And that would be an exciting, stinking plot point. And also would mean that they'd effectively duped the entire fan base for, like, almost an entire year into following exactly in that footsteps. So that would be cool. I like Miquella, though. Hopefully I don't get, like, absorbed into a death monster or something, but Miquella, cool. That said, this particular drawing, Miquella intimidating. And that's sort of what we're going for. I'm still not sold on... Let's see. I'm trying to figure out what Miquella would be dropping. Like, I was just doodling different things from the game. Kind of like one of St. Trina's lilies, just sort of drifting, but I'm not sure entirely. Something to think about. But mainly I needed something to do with that arm. Now, if we wanted to really lean into less horizontal and more vertical... I had to think, because we could go back to that sort of pose from C with the other arm raised. Put the Shotel in Miquella's left hand, which isn't a terrible option. Could be interesting. But I also kind of like the Shotel giving like a focal point down here too. Sort of, I don't know, composition's been such a mess with this piece, I don't want to mess with that anymore. But I do want to make sure that our pose actually makes sense for what we're trying to say. If Miquella's other arm needs to just be out of view, then so be it. But, I don't know, it makes sense to be leaning forward a little bit and have it at least visible. And I feel like... Let's see. I feel like if we did an alternate that was... Oh, jeepers. Oh, right, I was on title card colors. I don't even know what color this is. Sure. Kind of a deep, rich blue, I guess. Nice. Don't know how I landed on that. Oh, I was probably using the low-spec sunset color palette. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I guess we won't see. That doesn't really matter at this point. Go check out low spec. They have cool color palettes. Not sponsored, just neat. In any case, we will come back to this, and we will start getting out of our super sketchy phase and into an actual line worky phase. Man, I remember why I hid this other Twitch stats screen now. There is something ever so slightly disheartening about seeing people poke their head in for 2 seconds. Not that there's any shame in that. Like, I do not want to guilt trip people into staying or leaving. Like, by all means, you're not obligated to be here. But it is interesting to see people pop in and out. I don't have enough, like, either skill as a commentator or interest in metrics to try to make anything important or tangible out of that. So we'll just leave it for now. Okay, OC. Was the one that had the other arm, like, up behind. Not quite that cartoonishly behind, mind. Or vanishing into the horizon line. Not quite the horizon line, there's still an angle to it. Needs to taper a lot if we're going that far up. What would Miquella be holding? We could put the lily in this hand. I have no idea which that drew on. But that feels like almost like cartoonish. And it like kind of counters the other arm too much. If we have it come out here, then, I don't know, it ends up with a really weird sideways motion. We could always, of course... Here, I'm going to leave some of these on E, that's fine. I mean, we could always just have it back here. Like in a sort of intimidatingly casual pose. Looks like a chuckster. I don't know why that's where my mind went. That feels way too static, though. I like how dynamic that is, but it doesn't really match the angle of the head. Like, doing that inherently kind of pulls your head that way. You gotta really fight it to look elsewhere. And it's kind of like a weird, awkward pose. Especially if that's not the arm you're about to strike with. I guess they could be offering the lily in this hand and the shotel up there. But I kind of like the idea of just dropping this. I think that this pose is interesting enough. The only real problem is it no longer really fits well with our canvas. But I think we realized a while back that this vertical canvas was going to be a problem. I mean, look, we've got way too much vertical space. We can still lean into that more, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't think we're going to be filling the whole thing. So this is the part where I'm kind of inclined to say, let's do a fresh canvas start. I hate to do all these fresh starts. Like, I'm very much a proponent of don't keep resetting, build off of where you are. And I don't mean that like in an art thing where if you have bad proportions, just keep drawing like on top of it. But I mean in terms of projects in general, if you keep restarting because it's not perfect, you never finish. That's why so many passion projects fail, is passion gets directed at perfection, which you're never going to get your idea directly into reality. That's just not really how things work. Not until you've got a ton of skill, and even then it's unlikely. So, it's not really the most viable thing to try to restart to get it more perfect each time. But if you're getting too muddled down in, like, what I'm going to call tech debt, or legacy code, or other things that are, that you don't have to commit to, but are actually genuinely holding it back, then I mean, why not? Since we're basically starting from scratch, and I can keep this open as an immediate reference, or even import it as a reference, I don't think there's any harm in doing this in a new illustration. The only thing that I want to think through is what shape and size the new illustration should actually be. Because I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I'm kind of tempted to go square. I don't think we need the horizontal space of a fully horizontal canvas. I worry that it's going to... They both have their drawbacks in this case. Square might ultimately draw a little too much attention to the corners here. Because just imagining if we're doing like rectangular, and we cut it there, or square and we cut it lower, it does leave a lot of open space. But I guess if the square is more zoomed in, and I did mess around a little bit on yesterday's post stream with just like some intense backgrounds to really lean into this, which I think might be something we could hint at. I wouldn't want to do in full depth in the design and everything, but could be something we consider. They would all have to be very dark gray. I would probably have a separate grayscale palette just for them that would be almost entirely black, with just a few very brief highlights, and we wouldn't do a lot of detail there. Keep that one light and sketchy, probably. I'm fine with that. I think let's do it. Let's make a new. And we can put a May date on it, too. And who knows? Look, I don't want to jinx it, but all I'm saying is I was thinking that the time-lapse... I still need to post the Melania time-lapse. I did do one. The speed draw for it. And the Sifamir and the Olivine. I've got a backlog of stuff. Okay. But I was thinking that on this one... I mean, I think I'm going to post what we got so far from it as a time-lapse once we're done, but... it definitely wouldn't be the most interesting or good speed paint. I mean, interesting maybe, in that you would see the entire process, which is good. That's why we stream this. But it's not necessarily why you watch bite-sized videos of it, you know? Board time-lapse. Zupa. Now, the catch here is I think that's way too small of a square. I mean, we were already on a 2040 canvas. Even more... let's see. I'm not saying we ought to go 4K, but I'm thinking at least double this. You know? And they say to keep a much higher resolution than this. Let's at least get 300. Grayscale would be fun, but if I do that, I don't necessarily want to mess with it at this level, at this stage. So let's start with that. And let's not caps lock if I can help it. This will be Miquella V2. Oh, I've gone and put the dates in the wrong order. I only even had 2 numbers. Oh, dagnabbit. Okay. Hold on. I'm just gonna fix that now because it gets to be a pain later. Ah, good. Yeah, it's been so long since we started a new one. Oh no. Forgot that's how it works. Oh, I did it bad with face practice too. Oh, jeepers. Oh, it's actually symmetrical. Nice. I'm actually gonna go back and fix that other one that was backwards too. Looks like that was March 27th. So that was a while ago. Ah, I remember which one that was. Man. Making me realize we've kind of slowed down in 23. We're doing like fewer, longer illustrations. And a lot of Miquella stuff. Keepers. Yeah, like Millennia, we just had 1 illustration for 2 months, basically. Or 1 month. It was just like a full month of that. Because we had those awkward Elden Ring stickers beforehand. Once we get better at this, we can revisit that, but that was not great. I didn't hate the style, but I couldn't keep it consistent, and so that ended up not working. And there's plenty, like, I feel like after Millennia, we learned so much that we can do much better. Okay, so that was April, that was May, and then back to Miquella again. Cool. Okay, but that doesn't mean we're getting rid of this other one. Oh, no siree. Let us export it. I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this. Export single layer. Export vectors. No, not that. Import. Oh, you can import vectors. Ooh. We're gonna test a thing. Oh, it's just the 1 layer, huh? Interesting. What if I select like more than 1 layer? Cool. We're gonna have fun with the vanishing point on this too, huh? Let's leave the background out for now. But I think we want the E and the perspective. Okay, nope, looks like we just get the 1. Or it just takes the title of the top one. I don't know. Let's pick this one first, and this one second, just in case. I'll export vectors, exports. Just dunk them there for now. File, import, vector. Oh man, does that work? Well, there's something happening up here. Oh, is it like massive? Uh-oh. Or did I just draw those earlier? No, I mean, this is on the layer marked as Pose Refine E. Oh dear. Well. Let me just see if we can't. Well, no, it won't even let me select outside of the actual. Okay, I'm gonna hazard a guess that didn't work. Let's do it the other way then. Actually, hold on. Let's double do it the other way. How did I collapse that layer? There we go. That's a new one. Oh, that's kind of neat. Ooh. I think I shouldn't do that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it collapses back out. But I guess you could have a whole bunch of panels. Hold on, let me experiment with it. If we put this here, Oh, that's so nice. Okay, hold on, cool. I could separate these out way more and have a much better workspace on this. Ooh. Upgrades, people, upgrades. Nice, nice. Oh, it even has the subsection. Ooh, okay, I like this. This gives us more room for reference images if we want them. We're not really using that one. Oh! Speaking of, found a new one. I'm sure my desktop's a stinking mess right now. It's not too bad. I was watching a Vatividya video, and another statue I hadn't noticed because it's primarily in rooms full of death. Not literal death, literal scarlet rot, but enemies. That's actually a considerably more refined face reference, and it has the crown and the start of some of the wavier hair. Not the braids though, which is interesting. Ow. So I think I'm gonna throw that one in there for a little more reference. I didn't want to go into the game to bother getting what would definitely be a worse screenshot of it. Although we could get a front-on view, but I think this is enough for us to get the face. Actually, because of that candle there, we have a really good idea of the planes of light and like the shape of the face too. This is a way better statue than the other one we were using. For this purpose. Also gives us a little more outfit hint, the way stuff falls. Anyway, lots of good with that. Now what I was saying was that I'm going to... Okay, hold on. Have I broken something? Oh, I think CSP froze. I'm gonna close it real quick. Say hello to my desktop. Yeah, save those. Save both of those. Ah, not my desktop. Flip Studio Paint. Here's my desktop. Are any of you surprised it's from Elden Ring? You shouldn't be. Paint. Open. There we go. Recent Miquella V2 file. Recent Miquella V1. Okay, so what I want to do is hold on, let's hide pose C. That's adding a lot of muddle. I think we can leave that in. Okay. File export single layer PNG. Exports. I think this one's probably already here, but this will be fine. And with this one, we can import just so that we have it as an easy reference on hand, you know? Again, if anyone knows a better way to export, should like transfer these things between each other, I am 100% down. Jeepers. Oh, where did it export to? This one. Oh good, we even got my notes by accident. Okay, so first off, this pose on square. Well, that's gonna be too big. I'm gonna have to remember where the heck stuff is. Still, I think it's going to be worth learning how to do this. I almost... Oh, man. I'm torn. I really am. Because here's the thing. Let me sort out my mess that I'm doing right now, and then we can talk about how I'm torn and why. So, on the one hand... More horizontal space would allow more drama up on this close, really let us lean into the Eclipse Hotel being in your face. And get some of this side stuff. On the other hand, more vertical space would allow us to lean into the drama of this vanishing point a little more. I don't know what would be better in this case. I mean, that gives us more vertical space. That's not, I mean, not good for rule of thirds. But, that might be okay. Let's try this. Hold on, before we commit further, Let's experiment with another canvas real quick. I know. Actually, hold on. I wonder, can you resize canvas? Is that a thing? I'm gonna do a quick search real quick. That would be much easier. I almost typed Miquella resize canvas. Clip Studio Paint resize canvas. Oiki doiki internet. You doing okay? Are you uploading, mate? Stop uploading nonsense. We don't need that. Edit, change canvas size. I should have known it'd be under edit. Aha. So let's see. Hold on. I need to check the dimensions of something real quick to see what see if I can get a good, reasonable size on this. Let's do that. We'll see if the proportions on this are any good. We change the width to... Oh, where was it? Dagnabbit, I saw it just a second ago. There we go. Found it again. I'm gonna aim for big monitors and see if we can adjust these proportions a little bit. Let's see if that ends up being better. Oh, did it just warp the whole darn thing? Please tell me it didn't do that. Okay, no. Yeah, see, this feels too long ways now. Which I'm not loving. Like, I need something that's a little more balanced. I promise we're actually going to draw today. But this is one of those little things I do want to tweak before we commit too far. I do like that we can rule of thirds it a little bit. If we don't have that arm. It still puts Miquella really close to the top, though. And it's not really on the rule of thirds. I don't know, we could do weird... We don't have to commit to the normal ratios. Given what we're going to use this for, I'm not too worried about it. But it is probably bad practice to do some of these weird ones. Okay. This gives us a little more room to have fun with it. Probably got too much width. We've a weird size for things. We'll have to get the actual Chotel proportions in here and things like that, and then we'll be able to do good. Okay, let's see. I think rather than refining this until it's completely worthless. Hold on, no. One more tweak. I want to see if it works. Let's lean it in a little more, shrink it down a little bit more. There we go. I think that's roughly what we're going to want. View of the Chotel's even so close that it's not fully in there, that's fine. We'll have tweaking once we do like proper proportion stuff, but I think this is roughly what we want. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go to our layers. Oh yeah, that was... Let's just toss that one. And actually this one too. Let's get ourselves our first vector layer in here. And we're going to try to do like an actual sketch in here. But before we do that, I unfortunately desperately need to use the restroom. So I'm going to take a quick pause and do that first. That's also part of why I'm myself am pausing so much. I'm just like, I have to. Well, that's interesting. It just opens it in a viewer window. Nope, it did open the project. It just had no toolbars. Okay, here. I'm going to set it up so that I can see the other one before we start on this new thing. Let's see, Miquella V1. Just to sort of see what we were doing, ideas and such that were going on over there. I'll have that as my reference. And then we're going to actually get started on V2. Oh, it was... Oh, that's interesting. So the tools stay the same. It's just a different window over here. Oh, now that's fascinating. But I think that's also going to be enough of that. We need to actually get in here and draw, yeah? Right after the break, of course. So give us just a couple of minutes, take care of yourselves, and we'll be right back. See y'all in a little bit. Howdys and salutations, y'all. Thank you for waiting. You know, it's funny, you can get away with saying thank you for waiting because all the people who didn't wait don't hear it. Works out nicely. I guess unless someone showed up in the interim. But they'd still have to wait a little bit. They'd have to have perfect timing. Like, they log on right, like, just a split second after you close it, but before you say it. Anyway, you know, perhaps they didn't have to wait, but that's lucky them. That's their lucky day. Anyway, it feels like one of those silly logic proofs where you have to be like, explain everything that fits into one group but not into the other. Or like a really clever programming solution where, like, you don't even need the else if because it just inherently negates the alternative or different. Anyway, I'm getting off topic and I'm fairly rambly. Which I don't think I needed to tell you guys. You probably noticed. I did mess with the overlay a little bit. I did check the notes from last time. But I think it's just about time that we actually get in here and do some detailing, don't y'all? So first off, we've got our pose here, and it's got its proportions. But we haven't really done a properly thought out proportions on this yet. So that's not my phone, that's a timer. There's my phone. I've got some proportions refs for different ages that I'm going to try to use for Miquella to make them look, you know, not completely ridiculous. We'll see how it works. Or my phone won't even let me open Pinterest. There it is. Okay. Dip-a-doop-a-deep-a-dup-a-doop-a-deep-a-doop. Dee-bop-a-doo-bop-bop-bop-a-doo. Come on, loading, Miquella. Let's get this ref. Okay. Poses. Boop-a-doo. Okie dokie. Well, we'll lean into this age. It's going to be reasonable enough for what we're doing. I mean, this blue brush has been fine, but I kind of want to go back to, like, some reasonable gray. That's the wrong option. Okay, back to some reasonable gray. Trying to get away from our 6'8", 6'8", 6'8". It hasn't been doing super great lately. That's a little annoying. See if this works. That's a pretty light gray. But that'll probably be okay for our proportions. I mean, we could really do these in just about any color we wanted, truth be told. Okay. I'm looking at our presumably tiny reference image. We can zoom in a little bit. It doesn't really give us a good idea, but we can tell it's like a cloak, not cloak, all the way down. So that's something we can work with. Kind of shorter sleeves, but baggy. Options aplenty. So, with those options aplenty, whoops, that hid all my overlay and everything. I kind of need that. Cool. Then, with the options aplenty, getting back to that concept, let's actually see if we can't do this. Now, the perspective's going to make this nasty business. But we've got some tricks for that. So, assuming that this is our head size, this trick may be a bad idea because you have to start with the head, and the head is going to be the most deformed part in this view. Interesting. Let's see, for this one, 2... Really? They go with 7 heads for kid? I don't think that's right. Ay. Well, in any case, we'll try to get this reasonable, at least within itself. But first off, the whole body is slightly tilted forward. It is still tilted forward at such an angle that it is above us. I'm gonna go with a darker color on this, I think. Not the alt colors. Let's just grab this one. Yeah, that'll do. Out of curiosity. 42s across the board. Okay, a little darker than we've used. Should still be good. This is a vector layer, so we've got nice erasing. Actually, these other lines won't get in the way of it because it's just a PNG. Aha! Okay. So tilted downward, but still above our view because we're dealing with these perspective lines. I really want it tilted downward. If we want this to be imposing, you kind of go with like almost like a chest and hips puffed out a little bit, and then shoulders back a tiny bit. But then they still need to have the head lean forward. It's kind of an interesting pose. Let's go with that though. I think I'm gonna trust the pose over, like, I'm gonna trust the pose that looks cool over my random thoughts about what may or may not be ideal. I don't want our reference image back. Okie dokie. Sort of keep this fairly simple. We keep it a fairly boxy torso shape. Kids don't really have very like strongly defined shoulders, so we don't need to worry too much about that being a priority. Sort of get the taper of the cloak. Front is going to be fairly flat. This still ended up being a relatively flat pose, truth be told. In reality, I think this is actually going to taper back just a little bit. But I'm kind of okay with that because our angle is so much better. We get the dynamic pose, or the dynamics of it, partly through this pose is still better than the last one. The last one wanted to be this pose, but it always ended up with a flat bottom, and so it was just very static. Just like a brick sitting there kind of bending over. What we're trying to get with this pose is more of a front out kind of thing. Leaned back. Keep it a little more lively, perhaps. Nope. Forgot we were on pencil, not pen. Well, now this looks like kind of ballet-ish. This is over-exaggerated, but I think you get my point, is that there's a lot more happening here. It's like a JoJo pose. Yeah, okay, so not exactly that. We do talk about exaggerating and really leaning into the forms, but that's literally leaning slightly too far. But yeah, okay, so we've got that. It'll taper out. I'm not too worried about leg positions. They are ultimately going to influence the cloak, but I think we're just going to go with a fairly standard bit of business here. Okay, wait, no. What am I doing? Have I forgotten all of my proportion guides? Yeah, brain, work with me here, mate. The intense perspective mixed with me being rusty is not the best combo. And no, I'm not really that rusty on these. I just... that line's wrong. We need to... right. Horizon line. Let's actually figure out a vanishing point for the torso, shall we? I'm going to use this shoulder because I actually like its angle. So this is going to be our vanishing point. While I may not stick to that religiously, it is going to be very helpful for defining those lines. These lines kind of need a different vanishing point, and this is, again, just for the torso. I'm not worried about other parts. See, the vertical lines vanish towards this. Okay, here's my plan. Let's start with a box that's proportioned and angled correctly so that we can get our... not even proportioned, perspectived correctly. This is what I was talking about last time. I mixed those two up way too much. Okay. Here's our torso line. Somewhere in there. Here is our vanishing point. Although in reality, it's really more like here. This line's a little bit off, that's fine. We've got like almost vertical, slightly back tilted on that one. got presumably some vanishing point way off in the distance over there. Those are going to point towards. And we can get this going towards it. Okay, knowing that that's the box our torso occupies, maybe we can angle it just a little bit more now and actually plan this out. Yeah? Yeah, sounds like a plan. Best usually one and half ahead. And sort of get the waist too. Once again, this is a fairly flat pose, I'm not gonna lie. It's just at a very extreme angle, which helps keep things exciting. But it still has a little bit of activity going on with it. See, I'm trying to think if it'd be better. Do we want Miquella putting more weight on one leg? Yeah, if we have it like that, then really the best angle for the leg is going to be, I think. Alright, I guess I could push this hip up a little bit if we have this leg sticking out a little more towards us. I think that'd be good. But right, first off the box it's in, and then this method is definitely going to be a risky one, just risky about leading to static poses if we're not careful. There we go. That's a fairly extreme vanishing point too, truth be told. We'll start with that. You know where this one lands. That's the box that like the hips and such will be in. And then the actual hips we can tilt a little bit, but because of this box it'll be easier to do that. It'll be harder to keep it flexible with the tilt, but it will be easier to do it in perspective. Big old leg joint there. Leg can sort of come out towards us. And again, this super won't be visible in the final. Leg joint sort of see-through on the other side there. Thinking we'd have like that one knee forward, this one knee more facing us. Kind of arced out a little bit. Make things exciting. Okay, next up, head. I'm actually fairly okay with the proportions as is because we may be fudging them just a little tiny bit, which is fine by me. For this, I mean, honestly I don't love fudging it, but I think it will be better for this particular piece, and I think it's still within the bounds where it will be plausible. But the fact of the matter is, we need to be able to see Miquella's face. It's like a fundamental critical part of this whole drawing. So what we could do is draw a box that contains the head, like that's in perspective, and then go from there, but that helps with the hips, but since the head's already a box, it's not too hard to like try to mentally adjust it. I'm sure I'm going to say that and then make it like way too big, but that actually kind of works for childish proportions that we need for Miquella. So yeah, I'm still going to lean into it a little bit. We're obviously going to, when we actually shape the head, it's going to end up being a little bit smaller, most likely, unless we get real creative with how we're doing that. Let's figure out where the other arms exist, and then once we have sort of these proportions and the angle of the pose, then we can lean into some, like, we can probably exaggerate it a little more now that we've got like a basic perspective to work off of, and we're not just doing wonky boxes in unrelated space, which is so often what ends up happening. Just like, oh, okay, then I don't know, another box. As much as I like my boxes in unrelated space, they don't look like they're part of the same person. Or anything, really. So instead of doing that, let's try to get a few more things into proportion, and then we will go from there. We might be able to do a really exaggerated background just to get a window with an eclipse, or maybe the eclipse banner. Ooh. Oh, it's a cool banner. I really want to include that banner somehow. We'll find a way. We'll find a way. We need some very faint background elements to sort of fill some of the open space. Very faint, mind. So I think we'll have some fun with that. Okay, so we continue these lines. We can extrapolate. Literally, actually, in this case. Roughly how big the shoulder ought to be. And again, kid shoulders, not super exaggerated. So it's probably going to taper in a little more than this. I won't make it the full trapezoid. Then let's think about arm and leg positions. So specifically, I think we've probably got the legs too short on this. Partly because of the intense perspective is inherently they're going to need to look longer than they normally would. That way we can really lean into this. Because they're way up close actually on our horizon line. This also puts us at Miquella's knees, which is an ominous position to be in, given that Miquella's got a very large weapon. So, the Eclipse Shotel is going to be a fun thing. We'll figure out an exact pose and angle for it and such that will work. I almost wonder if it'd be better angled down. Like if he's holding it and like goes up and then it curves like that. Ooh, that could be interesting. That would also put the spikes even more towards the viewer, which would not be great. And it kind of keeps more fluid motion. Like this is definitely a countering motion, but it ultimately ends up being kind of bland in the contrast over there. This would give us a really sharp contrast edge there, which would be fun. So I think that we'll have to do that. There's knees. Thinking about elbow positions. So typically elbow lands somewhere around the waist. Even with this exaggerated pose, that's going to be true. It's just, even if the subsections of elbow don't look like they're the right length proportionally to each other if they were in a flat plane, they should still be relatively correct to the other things in the scene. We'll get elbow here, and then typically wrist lands somewhere around like the hips. Let's see. Hips are big just because of the perspective angle, not literal width. Okay, let's see. Bent. Still ending up putting it up considerably higher than I'd expected. That instead. But I don't like that view. It obscures so much. Holding it lower like that's interesting. And of course, we can always adjust the angle that he's holding it at. Ooh, having it even pass through our horizon line, putting that thing like right at eye level and even a little bit below our eyes, that, ooh, okay. That's the plan. That's the plan. Does this arm seem right? I'm trying to think. If I tried to draw a line directly through the waist, like that, I feel like, yeah, this is landing a little too low. There we go. Okay. And even because of the bend, it maybe ought to land higher than that. I'm going to do the same thing for the waist, to be fair. Or the waist box, anyway. Yeah, that one's reasonable. This one being a little bit higher up. Because it's bent, and so it's not like at full extension down, it's curved up a bit. Yeah, we'll have that. Have it come down. The tapering is going to be really weird, because normally an arm tapers, not consistently, but you can get away with a fairly reliable, just like a tapered arm. They do that. They get bigger to small. Sure, you've got like that funky bit at your elbow underneath where it does that. And then you obviously get to the wrist and hand, which I'll do weird stuff. But generally that works. However, because of our perspective, the extreme angle means that even though it should be wider at the top, it's getting more towards the distant perspective, and also that's good. So that's getting countered by the narrow, which is interesting to say the least. It's going to make that very complicated. Still, I'm glad that we roughly know where it ought to be. Then we've got this arm, which I'm going to similarly try to put into perspective. Then Miquella's going to have a lot going on with hair. We're going to have fun with the hair. It's probably going to need to be a little taller. We'll start with that. Like building a Minecraft skin when we do heads like this. It helps with proportions and angles though, but it's obviously not what we'll do for the actual like shape of the head. Proportions and perspective and all that, I should say. Once again, this can be like a little above, but it ought to be a little lower down. And then it's still going to taper a lot because that arm is not coming down real close to us, which by the way, this hand ought to be much bigger. There we go. There we go, that's better. It's in our zone, then the hand's going to look big. It's getting in our area. Okay. This intense angle is difficult to deal with. I think it's gonna be worth it, but man, it's made this challenging. It's gonna make the lighting really fun though. Like in a good way. Genuinely fun. And then we really want this to be like tilting towards us. So Miquella has just dropped unknown object getting dropped. That'll do. Okay, so now if we go back to our layers, we've got ourselves our rough sketch. We take away this, we've got proportions we can work with. So we've got basically what we have is concept that's in perspective and sort of has this look, which I definitely want to get back to this good tunic look and all that. We've got the actual like perspective and the proportions related to it. Proportions. And then this is going to be in one big stinking sketch folder, I'll tell you that. And we got this one, which is going to be, let's see, I'm gonna say refined sketch. I think that's reasonable at this point. Yeah. Refined sketch. We're not gonna be dealing with inking or anything like that, but we're gonna be trying to clean this up a lot. So we're gonna put the perspective on faint. We don't need to worry about our perspective lines, except, like, again, the horizon line, which I've been a little wonky about. Still inconsistent, but, get this on the correct layer, shall we? Yep. But it's an important one. Okay, come on. Alright, the trick is to look at where you want it to go. Duh, how do I always forget that? Okay, there we go. And the more we taper the legs, the more intense this perspective is going to be, and we can get kind of like exaggerated with it, especially as we get to the bottom, because it's just, the whole point is that it's like right in your face. So like these legs should be intimidating, even, and the bigger they are, the proportionally further away everything else will look, which is good. The head's probably a little too big. We'll work on it. Okay, refined sketch though. I just did those layers on refined sketch, didn't I? New plan. Merge these two layers. Merge the selected layers. Let's do a new refined sketch layer. Oh dang, that actually kept the opacity difference too. That's interesting. Yes, in theory you could use that to get more and more like precise opacity settings. Oh, okay, no, eventually it just like vanishes off the horizon line. But still interesting. As you can tell that this new line is darker than the previous one, so it's still proportionally kept that. Fascinating. Okay. Now is where things get, I mean, it's all fun. It's all fun in its own right. Every step's a little different. They're all exciting. But this is where I want to actually start to be getting, like, you know, real Miquella shape. And this part is still loose. But don't worry. It's not going to stay loose. I'm just trying to get this stuff in here so that we can use it when we're doing more important things. A little bit of a roundedness going on here. I'm not going to pretend I'm an anatomy expert, but I can at least get some of this stuff going right. So this arm has issues, but that's fine. That's way too well defined for one thing. That's not the biggest issue. Of course, there's actual proportional issues, but you know. Okay, the second thing, if they're holding it like this, we're going to see... Theoretically, we'd be seeing the top of the hand. Under normal circumstances, at a head-on view, this would be the top of the hand. However, from our angle, we're actually going to see something a little different. Let's see. Hold on, that's the right hand. Okay. Holding it like that, thumb's going to be facing us. My point is, we're going to see the curling fingers a lot more than like the top of the hand. Thumb's going to be on our side. I'm going to start just representative, and then we'll get there. I'll look at the Eclipse Hotel that we did in the other one, because we had a very nice detailed Eclipse Hotel that we can use as a reference, or maybe copy over and trace part of it, because we'd made it, so that'd be easy enough to do. Okay. Challenge being, of course, that that's never fully round. I mean, I guess it can't. Part facing us is really, it's going to be the point. Knuckles sort of turn back in. Let's try to get that a little bit more. Oopsie doodle, not that. So a placeholder for the Shotel. That's not the right end of it that we'd see. I'm trying to get this hand to look halfway rough. Let me just call this sketch. I think refined is going to have to be another layer on top of this, that is fine. That's the Shotel. Good. Okay, that's some weird proportions. Pushing there. Shoulder. Little bump, but again, when they're... Miquella looks young, so less of a bump. So from this angle, do you really have that bump at the top that's visible? Or is it really more of a, like... I guess there is, but it seems like this more arcs into it, and this is a little less bold. And... yes, I'll do actual hands on this layer before we're done, or at least on a layer before we're done. My plan is to have those ready before we're done today, so... Okay, so that's a little more actual human-shaped as opposed to boxes. Okay, shapes. Shaping up. Okay, anyway. The point of that being... let's actually make one that is a proper rough sketch now. Where I take my time on it, we use a smaller brush so we can get detail work. Oh, jeepers, this is a 3. No matter how big I make the canvas, the brush always seems like too big compared to it. I don't know what I'm doing. We'll go to 2 for this. It could be the pencils. Like, that's obviously more than 2 pixels wide. So I'm not entirely sure what 2 means in this context. And the tilt of it can make it much wider than that, so, you know. Let's go to layers and just make sure that I've got the layer lightness sorted out. Can't get rid of that underlying one yet, but I can make it more faint. Hope y'all can still see it on stream. It's pretty faint even for me, so yeah, okay, it's still visible. And perspective for proportions, just a little fainter as well. And then we'll really go in here. I wonder if I should use a different pencil for this stage. Yeah, now 2 feels really tiny. But 3 is definitely what we were using. I don't know. Let's use a darker gray on it. On this layer, good. Layer at full... Thought that was wrong. Oh, no, I forgot to create the new layer that we're actually doing. There we go. I knew something was off with the layers, because that shouldn't have been... This is the biggest reason I adjust the lightness of my layers. It's so I can tell when I'm on the wrong one. Sure, like, yeah, it helps mitigate competing lines and junk, but really, like, the onion skin benefit is to tell when you're on the wrong skin of the onion. I'm not sure onion skin's what you'd call this. That's more of an animation thing, and it shows previous completed frames, not earlier iterations. The concept is similar, though. Okay. Just gonna call this sketch for now. We're not committing to anything. Saving up can be a little fainter. And then let's look at our actual reference here, shall we? Zoom in a bit. Got some cloak going on that we can work with. We've got that belt that we can work with, and which we had in our other one, of course, because we've been going off of Miquella refs. And the Shotel is really messing with my perspective on, like, that's a bad tangent on that. Oh, that's not the Shotel. That's just a dumb, stinking line. Okay. There we go. I thought that seemed weird. Cool. Then yeah, let's try to think that we can get. Let's get the belt in here first. Start with smooth, simple lines. Just have like a little bit of arc on the end. Am I on the right layer? Good. Got me paranoid now. Belt still holds its own, just a tiny bit. Gotta keep the leather going. The X on the side. Okay, and then let's figure out the actual motion of this tunic. It's not going to be necessarily as immediately in motion, but it could still be as pulled. Let's see. Which arm is going to be doing that? It's going to be a little more static on the fabric flow. That's okay. Still, the idea that Miquella has walked up and is dropping this works for me, so we'll have it mostly flowing this way. Really lean into that tilt, lean into that angle even more. But I don't necessarily want it crossing across this vertical again. We can a little bit, I suppose. We've got the leg there, we can work with that. Start there. We'll start. Nope, I want that line. I want to get rid of this line. Be like catching a little more wind. There we go. Which means that the front of the fabric is going to be moving ahead of the back of the fabric, because this is going to be getting pulled back. And so our motion stripes are going to generally be like this. Not obviously exactly like that, but that's sort of the direction that we're getting. And even have like folds that go over. Smoother than that, of course, but something that we can start with. We will refine it. Don't y'all worry. See, and then on our last one, we had some pretty good twisting in the last one. Jeepers, the angle on this is throwing me for a loop so much. That's good. It is good to stretch the horizons. Okay. I'm going to say that it's going to be stretching like a little more to that one, not like a ton. It's still mostly going to be those diaper folds we've talked about. But the shoulders are the focal points. But this is, we'll have it bias slightly more towards that one. so that keeps that moving in a way that makes some amount of sense. Obviously the shoulder's always going to be something of a tension point. Well, not always, but it will be in this case. Okay. And we got sleeves. It's interesting that the sleeves are kind of bunched up in this example here. For curiosity, is that true on both? Okay, well both arms kind of arc up, so yeah. We could have it be a little bit less unbunched on this one, but we are going to be seeing it from below. Trying to think about our perspective. Being under it, we'll be able to actually see a little more behind than we usually would. The weight will be pulling most of the creases down to the lower part here. Won't be so much on that section. It'll be, you know, smoother on the top, flatter on the top, more creased as we get down low. And the curvature, this isn't fully selling me on us actually being below it, so we'll have to work on that. And the hand needs to be bigger for one thing, and actually be in a place that makes sense. But if the hand obscures like a lot of this view, then it'll feel more like we're below. Okay. My brain, I think I'm still thinking of this as like a front side line. We really need to be below it, so we need to actually see some of the below on this arm too. I'm going to try to sort of draw, if this was a box, then we'd really be seeing the underside of things. For a lot of it. I'm trying to draw where that box would end up. Okay. Oops, that is the wrong button. I don't need to mess with the angle more. It is baffling enough. Yeah, that looks coherent. That's probably good. Not sure if it's good, but it's probably good. Let's see, we'll get to the face in a second. Let's tackle this other arm. We'll get some loose sketching going in here, and then I think by the end of the stream we can get into some more detailed stuff too. Like I said, I don't want us to spend as much time on this as we did the first go-around. We've learned a lot. We know more what we're doing. I'm not sure I can confidently say we know everything we're doing. But we know better what we're trying to do, which is actually a good help in its own right. Okay, let's look at this hand. We will do proper hands, but I do not want to rush them initially. Let's figure out some fabric folds first. No, we could do. I had to look up St. Trina refs. I wonder if there's like a cloak type thing we could do. Like a shawl, something that's slightly more intimidating. Not sure it'd be canonical. And if anything, it'd probably be more flowing fabric that isn't needed, but it'd be cool looking. I mean, the Moog reference has the sort of cocoon thing going on. But I don't think that's the right era of Miquella for this. Okay. I don't know if y'all have seen, people in the Elden Ring like fan base are theorizing that in the DLC there's going to be a harder Melania. Like her again. And like she is already the hardest boss of a game. I know they like to bring back harder variants of things, but usually it's like a, you know, mid-game challenge that gets either reduced to a mini boss or like, psych, here's the real version. Sometimes even, like, if you think about Gundyr, it's the tutorial boss goes on to become one of the hardest in DS3. And, like, Asylum Demon gets copied and pasted all over the place. But isn't necessarily, like, late game. That's the first one of DS1. So it's interesting to think that they would consider in Elden Ring making the hard repeat boss, because they already have repeat bosses, you know. I don't have objections to that. I have some objections to Goderic being canonically real, but I don't have objections to anything other than that. I actually even like the Astel and Estelle, or however you want to say it. Because the idea of the falling stars being multiple also makes a lot of sense with lore. And Melania existing in a dream realm of Miquella would make sense. And Melania being even more devastating because it's a fantasy version of her would make sense. I'm just... she's already so far past the difficulty cap for most players. It's not to say if most players can't do it. They certainly can. But, like, she is a... even given the area she's immediately after, she is a leap in difficulty. A very tangible, very dangerous leap in difficulty. Let's see. I feel like we're even going to see... well, it's got the tilt. I think we're going to have, like, less curve and more of this one visible. The point of that being... let's not mangle our lines here too much. Okay. Bottom edge of the hand. And a drapey sleeve. Kind of get some stuff piling up down here. That would be side. Man, yeah, I haven't drawn draping fabric from below very much. It's weird. And we're at like kind of 3/4 below, so you still see some of the other side, but not like all of it. Oh man. We'll have to figure out exactly how the tension is going to fit in the armpit there. And then I realized the original here isn't super drapey, but the Moog image definitely is like super drapey on a lot of the cloth. Although the fabric itself isn't as much. Still fun to lean into it though. Drapey fabric is fun. I want to draw drapey fabric. Okay. This looks flat. I'm trying to figure out how to depict the fact that we're mostly seeing the side of the hand and not the top of it. That, okay, that's better. I was having less finger there. Right, it needs to vanishing perspective. Duh. It's amazing how many times the solution to my problem is perspective, obviously. Okay. Kind of this, and we kind of get some of the folds below. We'll actually be able to see underneath these folds, which is interesting. Yeah, obviously that's going to need a little work. Get some like ridges and such going. Not going to be a raw edge, but you can still have stuff like fold over on itself. Okay. Again, we'll clean up our fabric folds to be a little more naturalistic like we did in the last one. I'm just sort of trying to iterate through getting a little more detail while keeping our proportions each time. Because this is where things get interesting. So we've been using our mask and sphere method, and it's been serving us quite well. Let's see. However, I'm trying to think about how we should draw the sphere from the side view. Really still got to occupy most of the head, don't it? We want the mask to be in perspective on this front of the face. And it needs to be something like this. But that doesn't really come down very far, which, while childlike proportions are going to be a more rounded head, I'm not sure this is exactly what we need to go for. So it's possible that some of the chin is going to get lost in the fabric, is kind of my point. The head itself is Now this looks like the head's looking a completely different direction. Which is very cool, but I'd like to know how and why, and make sure that it's not lined up in the wrong place, because it is. Currently, that doesn't look like it's actually where the head ought to be, that looks like it's where the shoulder ought to be. Ah, jeepers. Let's go Selecty Tool. Just so that we can work with it. What obscured, perhaps, that's okay. Perhaps it was better where it was before. The intense perspective messes with things a little bit. I still think that that angle of face would be pointing too low if it's going to be here. We'd need to angle the face slightly more upwards. I say still think, I just figured that out moments ago, so that's not really a still think thing, is it? It's a now think. This puts us at almost profile view. That would be very different from our original sketch, but not necessarily a bad thing. And you know what this is giving me vibes of a little bit, and what I ought to use as a reference? Just for like face angle? Y'all remember in Toy Story when Andy throws Woody away in the nightmare? I remember it being really traumatizing as a child. Like a really scary overhead view. Well, okay, looking at this, Andy doesn't really even look down all that much. That is an intimidating view though, ain't it? I have no idea what most of these images are. But for Andy Toy Story, ominous. Don't like. I think the angle of Woody's head might be more useful for what we're doing. Well, in any case, let's keep on tweaking. That's what we're here for, after all. Let's also keep in mind the perspective lines a little bit. I know we've mostly faded them out, but they're still relevant here. Overall. One, we've got the two. Three. Makes me think the head ought to be smaller. Might end up being some somewhat obscured features at this rate. Disproportionately, if this is... Okay, look, let's actually look at the layers. So we've got the full-on perspective lines. I know I'm a little off there. But yeah, generally speaking, it was actually pretty good. I converged a tiny bit too soon. But generally speaking, this shape here, this width, this rectangle, is the entire body, which means the square, the head, should be smaller than that. I'm on the wrong layer. I don't... Right, okay. So if we're saying that, like, going off of our other perspective lines that we had been using, perspective points, see, we sort of had that going. So this shape is your shoulders, basically. We've got that, presumably something similar. That means the head really needs to be just this. And sure, coming down from that upper perspective. But even so, that's not big. It's the right size, but it is not big. Wait, no, hold on, this needs... It feels more like a charcoal pencil at this point. Well, now this is an interesting image. A sacred box alights. Anyway. So that's roughly the size we're dealing with. Even if it's bending down, it'll be a tiny bit larger, but not much. So what that tells us is that the head we had been drawing was too big. Which is not a surprise. Actually try to use these proportions. This is still going to be too big, but it should hopefully be less bad. The other one go. Shouldn't have done these on the same layer. I'm not going to. can do the head sketch on another layer. In the future, we'll probably have one big old sketch layer with the whole darn thing, but for now, we don't need that. So, let us see how we want to do this. Thinking through, oops, save. There we go. If our front edge is here, that's not the right tool. Okay, yeah, testing a new tool workflow for the first time live on stream, not my best plan, I'll be honest. We've got our perspective angle there, bottom of the head. We can have this, because it's facing us, it won't be quite as intensely small at the top. Although with the intense perspective, there will still be some of that. Still got to keep the perspective in line with these. For the head, if that's the right place, we're talking something more like that. Mask facing this way. Going to see mostly the underside of this mask. I was wondering if we'd even like see the back side of it a little bit. This is getting rather messy. Too much emphasis for a vector layer. Have the neck. Neck's gonna be so hard to do. Ah, no, maybe not. Like a nightmare bird. Looks like some cool, weird, abstract thing in its own right. Let's see. We'll keep going with this. I think that we're getting somewhere on the face. It feels like that's going to end up small. Which, I mean, it should. Perspective-wise, it should. Possibly let some of the fabric folds get out of the way. And we can also toy with that a little bit. Let's do proper sketch face. See where it gets us. I'm going to put the sketch head at a much fainter layer. Not gone, mind. I'm going to put the sketch at a slightly fainter layer. Let's, just thinking about face shape and proportions, let's see what we can do on the face. I'm even going to go to a 2 for this, and I'm going to go to a different color. Oh boy. Yeah, this is going to be really tight with this brush. Let's, yeah, thinking about this as our sort of reference. Fairly high forehead. Fairly stiff nose. Eyeline here. Eyeline really ought to be lower. Dagnap. But yeah, okay, the whole mask shape is like... There we go. That was part of our problem. Okay, so we've got side of the forehead. Got hair sort of curling in the example, so we'll lean into that for now, even though gravity's definitely going to be pulling that another way. Fairly soft chin. Pointy, but, you know, not sharp. That makes any stinking sense. I'm not sure it does. And we're actually at a considerably lower view. Even though it's tilted towards us, which helps a bit, we're going to be seeing more of that undernose. We're going to be seeing more of the underside of eye areas. Of course, mouth. Just as a start, using this as our hair reference, Because it's not the right direction that the hair bends, but that's okay for now. Just doing some simple stuff. Definitely more have the hair like that. Let's see. Size-wise, does it fit? Kinda. Actually, yeah, the intense perspective means that it kinda works. I may have to concede that my perspective lines were, in fact, more accurate than my brain. Which is usually how it goes, isn't it? Okay, let's see. I'm gonna be honest, I know we're towards the end of the stream. I need to take a quick break and drink some water. Give me like 2 minutes and we'll be right back, and then we will keep on going with this. I think what's next is mostly laying out what we need to do next in our order of operations. I think we're going to have some more, like one more layer of sketch refinement. That may be the next stream, it may be before the next stream, we'll see. And then I think we're going to jump straight into the inking. Hopefully this will go much... I'm hoping at the latest the inking will start on the upcoming stream. We'll see if we need to do some like fabric refs or different things to clean up. We'll find out. And I guess we still have to sketch the Shotel. Okay, Shotel can be a final thing today too. We can pull up the old reference for that. Yeah, we got a few things to wrap up tonight. And then, so stick around. We'll still be doing that. And then on our next stream, which will hopefully be Sunday, but given the way things go, it might be Monday. Oh, which over here is Memorial Day. Coolio. Might actually make it easier to stream. I can do some prep and stuff. Not that it's, you know, still a holiday. It's still important remembering the reason for any holiday. If it's a good holiday, and then to celebrate that reason. If it's a bad holiday, then to acknowledge and not blindly follow it. Columbus Day. Anyway, the point is, we'll still do more stuff today, and then we'll definitely keep going. We're going to try to keep a much faster clip than we did last time. So instead of actual weeks of composition and sketching, I'm going to try to keep that down to just a couple of days this time. Hopefully even shorter. And by days, I mean streams, not literal, like, 24 hours of this. No. I want to keep us moving, because honestly, I enjoy the values the most. They're really fun. If I can get in the right zone on the sketching, it's a lot of fun too. But I'm definitely not in that zone today. We're making good progress, and I think that that's good. But I also can tell that I'm not, like, mentally in the spot. For example, I've gotten this sleeve entirely wrong. It should be over here. This should not be sleeve, this should be arm. I'm on the wrong layer. This hideaway layer thing is actually more annoying than I thought. I wonder if there's, like, if I could just pin the layer tab out normally. Not really. I'm sure there is a way. I guess, yeah, like that. And everything over there's collapsed. If I need to get to another thing, I still have my layers. Okay. I kind of like that. I like my layers. We could even have the layers be the more prominent over there. And then these kind of pop out from it. That's sort of like our old layout a little more. I like that. Okay. We're going to keep working on this. It's always fun to stumble across layout improvement options. Okay, because what we need, the sketch here. Perhaps I had to do like a contour drawing just to get a better idea of like the light and shadow and stuff, but that would not be on stream. That'd just be warm-ups and practice and such elsewhere. Oh, I'm so not gonna have a good thumbnail for this. We're gonna have to do more face tweaking. Anyway, I'm gonna do the pause. We'll do the face tweaking. Face tweaking and Shotel tonight are sort of my goals. Next time we will continue refinement on this sketch, and then we're on to inking. We're gonna move fast. Best as I know I say that a lot and don't follow through, but this time we actually have a plan to do it, and it should be achievable. So, and I follow through a fair bit of the time. This particular project with Miquella being the biggest exception. So, we'll see if that curse continues or if we've finally broken it. Hopefully we've broken it. In any case, we'll find out in a few minutes. See y'all then. Howdys and salutations! Hope y'all have some energy still. I've got a little more back. Scarf down some pizza, that always helps. Although not for stream etiquette, apparently. Sorry about that. Let's jump into some of the final pieces of this early sketch. Because there's two things that we need to think about. We're gonna have to plan the face a little bit. I'm still on board with potentially making it a little bigger. Or a little more angled towards us. That's something we can play with. We've got a few head sketch options. That's definitely something I'd love to spend more time with on the next stream. Because yeah, it could be it's partly it's a size thing. Partly it's an angle thing. I'd kind of like to tilt it a little more this way. Rotate more. Less looking at the hand, more looking at us. Obviously we'll have to do whatever the hand's dropping, and we'll get like actual fingers, fabric as well, and I still feel like the head position is a bit off. I'm gonna have to think about that. May need to get one of those like 3D refs that CSP has built in. But instead of that, first off, I would like to jump back down here because there's some important things that we haven't fully done. I mean, yeah, we've got some lines down here that are kind of catching the cloak. That's all fine and good. But we still need to get the shotel. Can't believe we almost forgot the shotel. I mean, we didn't. I mentioned it last time, but I had sort of mentally moved on. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. So first off, based on last time, it has a very interesting hilt, and we're going to use this to make the hand less dumb too. Yeah, I've got it open in another window. If this part of the shotel's facing us, we're not going to see the stinking handle. And I'm still on the brown brush, aren't I? Let's, oh right, we moved stuff again. Oh dear. Our palette, we've got our deep gray. Nice. Size, I think we're going back to 3. Yes. Okay. And we can put that away. That's the catch. If this is facing towards us, this would have to be really bent in order for the... Okay, good. For the handle to actually be showing towards us as well. And I even said this wasn't the accurate perspective for it when I did that. But really, the angle of the hand needs to be more... Like, that's the other thing. Cool. That whole other shaping up hand sketch is garbo, and we're getting rid of it. Opening is going to be on this side, because that's the side facing us, obviously. Thumb is going to be on this side, coming from here underneath it. Thumb there. Fingers arcing over it. We're not going to go too much detail on those right now, other than just to say, ayo, they there. Thumb is the big one, and then we're not even, like, we might see like a little curve of the handle, but we're really not going to see much at all of the shotel on that side. It's this side that's interesting. This side where the finger form is going to have to matter a little more even in this early phase. We're going to make that hand a lot less terrible and stiff, don't get me wrong, and we're going to not put fingernails on the stinking knuckle. Dag nabbit. Okay, so we've got that. I'm gonna throw shaping up back in here just so we can sort of get the shotel angle right. Because we may have to twist this hand a little bit. Obviously, where it connects to the wrist is not finished, nor would I expect it to be right now. Gonna have to make that a little more fluid, which is fine. And leave myself a note, just to be safe. There we go. That part will need some work, but I want to make sure that we're facing it around the angle of the shotel. Because this is going to be interesting, because it passes through our horizon line. The sharp part does, so it's not going to have much of an edge that's visible. There will be a little bit. Really flat, so where it passes through the horizon line is just going to be really flat, I think. You know what? Let me hold up a stinky ruler to my own face, and let's test this. Very flat thing, passing through horizon line. Now, the ruler ain't curved. That complicates things a little bit. Let me hold a bendy ruler up to my horizon line. So if it's like this, flat edge is the curved bit. Oh boy. Yeah, no, it's gonna be pretty stiff on the wide edge. We're just gonna see a little tiny bit. Okay. Let me see if I can't get this right. Like, this edge is not going to shift all that much. We used a circle tool last time, and we probably ought to use at least a Bezier curve this time. But, no, that's less fun. Okay, wow, great curve. Oh, is it this and then we curve it? Okay, I see now. Has to do with whether or not you click down the mouse or not. That's interesting. That's kind of cool. That's literally how it's calculated. So, like, whoops. If you could add extra vector lines to that and they would work as additional points. Probably not. Anyway, it doesn't necessarily work for our purposes, not that we need it to be exact. I would like to get a decent curve in here. A reference point. Nope, not another one of these. Sorry. That'll work. A reminder that the Shotel itself... hand tool, I'm looking at my other ref. Does indeed have the curve extend past the hilt on the return. Not a ton, but a little bit. In the side of this thing. Has all of its exciting decorations on the outside. But it does feel like we should get ever so slightly more view of the blade. Maybe even just enough to be like glinting. Like it'll just be a light reflection. It's so faint, so sharp. There we go. It's good to leave notes for your future self. You never know if your future self's going to remember anything. Mine usually doesn't. Once again, that's unfair. I'm actually not terrible at that. Shouldn't be so mean to my future self. I'm sure future self will be fine. Definitely not lose the game of tic-tac-toe I'm playing with him. Have you ever tried to play... This was the dumbest thing in the world. So in school we had one of those things where like on the first day of college or whatever, it was for one of the clubs, they're like, hey, write a letter to yourself at the end of the year with questions and worries and where you think you'll be. And then we'll come back to it at the end of the year. And I left myself a tic-tac-toe game. Shockingly, it never got to move 3. Past me did X, present me did O, past me did not move again. It seemed so funny to me at the time. In hindsight, I'm just confused. Okay, I like the crackles we have on the old one. I may not try to recreate those so much as literally like copy those over at some point. They're neat. Since past never played on the tic-tac-toe, we're no longer on good terms. I'm stealing from him. Sorry, buddy. I can't be too mad at past me. Past me did at least a lot of art practice at some point. Otherwise, present me definitely wouldn't be doing this. A little bit of depth on these. That's kind of interesting. Not a ton of depth, but just a tiny bit. These ones, it's on this side because we're below it. Got our nice handy dandy horizon line here. Get some where it's really not much of anything that's visible to us. Be like a little bit of a side or something. Then we start to get the ones where we can see just a tiny bit on the top. And on horizon. Okay. Well, let's see. Where we left off last time, we had a floating head, apparently. We had this rough sketch, which felt really finished when we were looking at it, but I feel like we've already got something that probably has too much detail in the wrong places, but is at least something we can work with. Tunic, we're going to have to tweak those folds. They're definitely not bending right. Let's see. Angle. Always good to leave notes. Otherwise, I forget everything. Except for the stuff I don't. Make this like smaller. That would really help with the perspective. Less vertical, same horizontal. Like, oh, we're not directly adjacent to it, we're under it. Is the hand sideways? It's perpendicular to floor. Why would I write this out? There's a symbol for this. Perpendicular to floor. Get perpend. Okay, we've got notes for ourselves. We know where to leave off. We've got the tunic with the ominous floating box head, which would be a fun thumbnail. I may have to mess with that. And then I think we've got proportions for things. This hand, I feel proportions are a little off. That's okay. Got the tunic doing its thing. Yeah, I think I know the directions we're heading, so we're making good headway on this one. I don't really have much more that I want to tackle tonight. I feel like we'd be biting off a bit more than we can chew if we tried to. But I think we're at a good place for next time. And that's really the goal of every stream, is can you just set yourself up to be a little better spot next time than you were this time. It's true in unprogress art pieces, true in life in general. You know, life's incremental most of the time. Just gotta try to leave it a tiny bit better than you found it, and bit by bit, it'll get there. At least that's what I hope. Otherwise, these daily exercise routines sure aren't doing squat. Nah, but anyway, I know this has been kind of a low energy stream, and I apologize for that. I won't deny being a bit lower energy myself today. But we will be coming back to this. Of course we will. And next time we'll get a lot more detailing on the face and head. Next time we will get, you know, we'll smooth out these wrist proportions and things like that. And yeah, I think this one's going to come along pretty well. Given where we left off, I know that the previous one was further along. We had the original Miquella illustration. Let me bring it back in. It's far along, but oh man, now that we pay attention to proportions, it's immediately obvious there's all sorts of weird stuff where we can see the top of the shoulders, but also this side that should be kind of more obscured from view. It looks like our horizon line is up here, even though our hand is there. Like, oh man, so much room to improve. I'm glad that we were able to step away from this one for a little bit and come back to it, because with all those quick in quotation marks, the one stream or the just a couple stream speedier draws, I think we've gotten a lot more experience with this. So hopefully it will come together pretty well when we're done. Hopefully y'all have good luck with your art practice, whatever you want to do, or whatever else you're practicing, be it games or other skills. And I hope y'all have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whenever it may be. Y'all take care.